Thank you for giving me this Freedom Writers Collaborative, this opportunity to share our deep dive into Project 2025. It is, I'm just going to say it, a chilling, nearly 1,000-page conservative leadership mandate with a great deal of specificity on how it will be implemented. I look at it as The Handmaid's Tale, George Orwell's 1984, and Fahrenheit 451 all kind of coming together in this horrible and dangerous plan to literally end democracy as we know it. They were not ready in 2017 when Trump got elected, but if he gets elected in November, they'll be ready to press the button on their plan. But before I begin with sharing how I need to share how I became aware of and alarmed by Project 2025. As you can see, I belong to an indivisible group called Freedom Writers Collaborative. We build ready-made, research-validated, issues-based social media toolkits on progressive issues and focus on educating voters, especially digital natives and other folks who get all or some of their news, or most of their news like digital natives do, online. So in the summer of, I think it was summer of 2023, we started discussing Project 2025 because in our group meeting, we meet every Thursday at 4:00. We started talking about building a new toolkit around Project 2025. My role on the team is writing text to accompany the memes and graphics in our toolkits. So I downloaded the Heritage Foundation's 920-page document that outlines the details of this diabolical plan. After I rather passionately raised the alarm about Project 2025 at a MoveOn.org meeting, hair on fire concerned that there didn't seem to be any urgency or even awareness of this sinister plan. So not even the press. I mean, when they were asked, when I was asked to make this presentation, I actually went back to that 920-page document and did very closely looked at all the details. And I was distressed. I pulled out some of the most distressing details, which is what I'm going to share. But first, my co-leader here, Jeffrey Levine, is going to play a Project 2025 video that we released with our toolkit. And I'll just warn you, it's disturbing.
President Trump, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thank you.
I want to dive right into this, a lot to get to.
Good.
The media have failed to expose Donald Trump in a framework that communicates the danger of a 2024 Republican presidency. They continue to treat him as a regular candidate and not the leader of a dangerous anti-democracy party. His Republican Party doesn't even have a platform and has become the first party in modern history without one. The obvious reason is that without a stated platform, their unpopular ideas cannot be challenged in open debate. But in their hubris, they made a mistake.
Project 2025 is a call for you to come work here, Washington, D.C.
A cluster of right-wing extremist groups got together and put all of their dangerous ideas in a 920-page document called Mandate for Leadership, Project 2025. This is the playbook for what they want to happen to America, should Trump or any other Republican president take office after winning the next election. Project 2025 is the doom of our multicultural democracy and the end of the rule of law. It dispenses with constitutional checks and balances and concentrates almost unlimited power in the executive branch. The diabolical plan that is Project 2025 was created by Christian nationalists and funded by the fossil fuel industry. Project Project 2025 has action plans to take away the rights of minorities, quote-unquote leftists, LGBTQIA plus Americans, and anyone who opposes extremist right-wing ideology. Project 2025 is the Mein Kampf of our age, the fully formed master plan for the takeover of the federal government and its weaponization against its own citizens. Now that we know their plan, we can alert voters to this danger. Help us spread the word by going to www.freedomwriterscollaborative.org and share our Project 2025 social media kit.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, for the next 20 minutes or so, I'm about to take you through some details that will probably cause some of you not to be able to sleep a wink tonight, knowing that if Biden doesn't win in November and Trump does, we will be living in a United States of America that most of us will not even recognize. Thanks to Project 2025, if Trump wins, this is probably the last vote that we, the people, will be able to cast. If Trump wins, the Heritage Foundation will be ready to pull that trigger on all the well-defined elements of Project 2025 that I'm going to share with you the very minute the race is called for Trump. They won't wait for the inauguration. They have a plan to dive in right away. And as Robert De Niro said when he was standing outside the courthouse during Trump's trial, election interference trial, actually. If Trump wins, he will never leave office. That should be chilling to everybody. Next slide, please. Project 2025 was devised under the leadership of the right-wing think tank called the Heritage Foundation, but it was aided by nearly 100 right-wing organizations, all intent on packing the next GOP administration with extreme loyalists to Donald Trump, of course. We highlighted a couple of people whom you might recognize here. Mark Meadows, Trump's former chief of staff, is the CEO of the Conservative Partnership Institute. With their $36 million annual budget from private donors, his group operates as a full-service nerve center for the right-wing activity and as a breeding ground for the next generation of Trump loyalists. Or take a look at Stephen Miller. He's a real peach. He's the architect of Trump's family separation border policy at the border. And he's CEO of America First Legal, who's going after diversity, equity, and inclusion under the grievance of reverse racism. And how about Charlie Kirk, another peach? He's CEO of Turning Point USA and advocates for conservative policies on high schools, colleges, and university campuses. So some of the college presidents you've seen come into Congress to be drilled about one thing or another have been fired from their institutions because of pressure from Kirk, who is a donor to many colleges and universities. Next slide. The plan is centered around 4 pillars. Pillar 1 is the policy agenda mandate for leadership, the conservative promise, they call it. Think of this as the policy Bible, their words, not mine. The entire book's sole purpose is to reshape federal policy and shifting social norms in America to align exclusively with conservative values. Pillar number 2 is a personnel database where conservative scholars, academics, and policy experts are being compiled. You can think of this one as a conservative-only LinkedIn database where authors of policy set a goal of having at least 20,000 recruits, all ideology aligned with people to pull from when it comes to trying to fill the filling the jobs that are just being done by right now by ordinary people who just go to work to do their jobs. They're not political, but that's what they want to do. As they're going to fire the civil servants who hold those jobs. And once they control the reins of government, again, their words, not mine. And they're doing it in a way to streamline the confirmation process to make sure that there are no hiccups this time. They were not ready in 2017 when Trump got elected, but they are ready now. Pillar number 3 is their Presidential Administrative Academy. It's an online educational training system for those potential employees under the rule of the next conservative president. And Pillar 4, it's actually been around a while. It's the 180-day plan that the Heritage Foundation first came up with. All these other 100 organizations actually built the execution plan that revolves around the 180-day plan. Together, these 4 pillars are what makes up Project 2025. Now, why should you care about this? Again, I did a deep dive into the details of this diabolical plan to dismantle our government as we know it. So I'm going to now take you through those details. Next slide, please. Government takeover is something that they intend to do right away. One of the key elements of Project 2025 administrative goals is to reinstate the executive order known as Schedule F. This would reclassify thousands of federal employees as at-will workers and give the administration the ability to fire employees who don't agree with or follow the extremist policies suggested by Project 2025. They've also created a training academy for potential employees for the next administration, which provides aspiring appointees with the insight, background knowledge, and expertise in governance to immediately begin rolling back what they say are destructive issues policies and advancing conservative ideas over those policies. The goal of the training, which currently consists of 4 online courses such as Conservative Guidance 101 or Governance 101, and the administrative state and regulatory process. They are prepared to fully equip future political appointees into these roles and be ready on day 1 for the next conservative administration. Project 2025 makes it clear that the Department of Justice is not independent from the executive branch and implies that agencies will be used to take legal retribution, we've heard Trump say that, against whomever Trump decides to investigate. And then, of course, Project 2025 director Paul Dance recently appeared on Steve Bannon's War Room and encouraged viewers of far-right broadcasts to send their resumes and participate in Project 2025's training to recruit extreme loyalists, again, to the next administration. Next slide, please. Yes, religion happens to be mentioned in this document 115 times, but here are some highlights. A healthy society, as far as they're concerned, is based on the biblical definition of family: a mother, a father, and children. LGBTQ families will not even be recognized. They will encourage private businesses to follow the Supreme Court's ruling that affirmed discrimination against LGBTQ people. In the fake case of that web designer who happened to be a heterosexual male with a wife and children, or the person who decided they didn't want to cook a wedding cake for gay couples. That's the kind of thing the Supreme Court is upheld. Here's one that really just freaks me out. They intend to mandate Sunday, the Sabbath day, as a mandatory day off work for all businesses. And this really bothers me as well because I'm Catholic. This group called Pastors and Catholics for Trump are mobilizing clergy to spread violent Christian nationalist lies from their pulpits. If we get the trifecta, we need to start taking money away or tax deductions away from these people. But the conspiracy theorist in me makes me think that the Supreme Court's having taken up Trump's "I have absolute immunity" case after the 3-judge panel in the district court in DC rejected that claim back on February 6th, and the Supreme Court hasn't ruled on it yet. The conspiracy theory, it says to me that he's going to get absolute immunity, which should be really, really scary. Next slide. On the issue of reproductive rights, these people actually want to establish what they intend to call the Department of Life. This is right out of Margaret Atwood's 1985 book, Handmaid's Tale. It's a fictional dystopian view of women losing their rights as citizens and serving as vessels to procreate for rich white men. With the next Republican administration, you better expect that there's going to be a national abortion ban. There's going to be probably a ban on birth control. You should expect women and their doctors to be criminally prosecuted for providing or receiving reproductive services. As was done in Mississippi, they will criminalize the purposeful or accidental destruction of unfertilized frozen embryos in all states. And to put a cherry on the top, they want to eliminate no-fault divorce so that women who are in abusive marriages will not be able to get out of those marriages unless their abusive husband agrees. How sick is that? Next slide, please. Yeah, law enforcement. They intend to terminate any unlawful investigations into the newly elected president, if that's Trump, or his prior cabinet. If elected, Trump is going to pardon himself, and he promises to pardon the convicted criminals who attempted to prevent the peaceful transfer of power back on January 6th in 2001. They promise military and or police crackdowns on lawful protesters, and we know he already did this during the Black Lives Matter movement, along with jail time or death for a prosecutor, for protesters without due process. Something Trump really wants to do, and actually did do during the Black Lives Matter protests, as I mentioned, which is to send the military into blue cities that they deem as lawless or high crime, such as, New York, Chicago, Seattle, where I am, and so on. Naturally, they desperately want to eliminate DEI and affirmative action across the government, military, even private businesses. And Stephen Miller is involved in that one. And by the way, DEI is mentioned 39 times. Affirmative action, equity, and inclusion is mentioned 90 times. They are clearly coming after us. Next slide. Oh yeah. Project 2025 eliminates federal protection for people included in this group and will not prosecute hate crimes against them. It halts all research against gender reassignment and defines transgender citizens as pornographers and groomers who should be all prosecuted, imprisoned, and removed from Christian society. And of course, they want to reinstate the Clinton era don't ask, don't tell policy in the military. And no transgender people will be allowed to even serve in the military. Next slide. Climate change. They can't even look around and see all the tornadoes that are tearing up our country, but they will end what they see as government interference in the industry decisions and stop the war, they call it, on oil and natural gas, and make sure private companies that threaten our climate are no longer federally regulated. Next slide. As you might imagine, immigrants will not do well in this authoritarian version of America. They even want to revoke immigration benefits that have traditionally been granted to unaccompanied migrant children. And you won't be surprised to learn that the word alien and alien children was used some 37 times in their documents. They want to get rid of H2A and H2B temporary worker visas for people coming from certain countries. And I bet you can guess which S-hole countries he wants to keep them from coming. Next slide. Education. Okay, thanks. We've already seen what they're doing to dismantle public education systems. They're banning books, threatening teachers, librarians, members of school board, And they want to eliminate slavery from the history of the United States, or when it is discussed, they want kids to believe that slaves somehow benefited from gaining useful skills. Slaves actually brought many of those skills with them from the homeland, and in nearly every field: agriculture, medicine, blacksmithing, carpentry, you name it. So, that's such a joke. Next slide. Let this one sink in for a minute. 90% of the items with the quotes came from Donald Trump himself. He loves the idea of having a civil war. He wants to use his military to shoot peaceful protesters in their knees. He calls the press the enemy of the people, and he wants to take away the licenses of organizations in the press that are not kind to him, I guess is the best way to put it. Members of the press and even citizens who dare defy him or criticize him will go to prison under Trump until Trump figures out what he wants to do to punish them even more. He promises to use the police and military to round up and put immigrants from certain countries in internment camps and ship them off to countries that he chooses. Next slide. Remember back in 2016 when Hillary Clinton labeled the people around him as a basket of deplorables? Well, I tried to envision the deplorables who might fill his cabinet. For example, Elise Stefanik wants to be VP so bad she can taste it. And Kash Patel has already said he wants to be FBI director. And Attorney General Matt Gaetz, ew. Michael Flynn, who was fired by President Obama, convicted of lying to the FBI, and someone who cozies up to Vladimir Putin. Can you imagine Tucker Carlson as Secretary of State? In a second term, there won't be any adults in the room to stop him from exercising his worst impulses. Every one of these folks will ask, how high, when Trump tells them to jump. Next slide. The road to authoritarianism starts with the election of Donald Trump. An activist on a meeting I attended this morning said something that kind of stuck with me. Realistic fear and knowledge are important persuaders. And I know we want to be positive, but we really need to scare the heck out of people on this. Every American needs to adopt a hair on fire posture about the implications of a Trump victory, knowing that the Heritage Foundation will be ready to pull the trigger on all the well-defined elements of this Project 2025 the very minute that the race is called for Trump. They won't wait for inauguration. They'll just march right on in it. Next slide. These are some of the memes in our Project 2025 social media toolkit. And my fellow freedom writer, Jeff, is going to show you how to access our toolkits. And then I'll come back and answer any questions that you might have about anything we covered.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to take you to our homepage, and you will see on the homepage we have over 50 toolkits. Not only, let me stop this. Sorry. So on our homepage, and we're going to send you the links after we're done. But for each of these tiles here, there's an underlying toolkit. And you'll see there's quite a few on our homepage. I think there are 54, right, Yvonne?
I think so, yes.
Is that the number we came up with?
I
So
think,
we try to announce 2 toolkits a week. We've been very busy. We're only 4 people. We work only so fast. But if you find anything missing in terms of toolkits or subject matter that we ought to cover, please let us know, and we'll be right on it. We're here to serve the progressive community. So I'm going to click on the abortion rights toolkit. And on the left-hand side, I could click on what kind of platform. So I've selected Twitter as a platform, or X. And if I just click on one of these, it will allow me to post to Twitter. And there it is.
We get a black box.
Sorry, you're not seeing the pop-ups.
No.
That's a issue with Zoom. But each of our kits has maybe 18, 20, this one a lot more than that, posts to various platforms. And we support Twitter, we support Facebook, LinkedIn. I believe this is Threads, Instagram, and WhatsApp. So it's a pretty good share of what we of the social media platforms out there. Our developers are always looking to tie in new platforms, and a lot of this is based on whether or not those platforms offer us the APIs to do what we'd like to do. So I'm going to shut up and turn it over for questions.